We welcome you all. We are extremely happy to see all of you joining again and again for all our knowledge sessions. Friends, while today's topic is about the FTP related scheme, first let us discuss about GST because I think today we completed 3 years into GST. All of you will recall our journey back into GST in 2017. We, as an entire country, we jumped onto the plane of GST, and just to find out that the navigation system of the plane was not well tested, that is the GSTN portal. We also realized that as we were on the plane, that the pilots and co-pilots, that is the state authorities as well as the GST central authorities, they are still learning. Additionally, we came to know that the crew members, that is all the CGST authorities and SGST authorities, they were rather busy with their past work, that is the excise, service tax and VAT related assessment. And in that plane we were, and we are still there in the last 3 years. I think the journey has not only been a roller coaster ride for all the taxpayers, but also it has been a roller coaster ride for all the consultants like us. All of us right now also after 3 years are in the same plane. Unfortunately, what has happened that in the first year, I think you will recall that the first year was literally, there were numerous technical glitches. The portal was not working, and the initial system of GSTR 123, because of that particular glitches which we are experiencing, that was put on a hold, and we introduced the system of GSTR 1 and 3B. In the same first year, we also experienced numerous glitches about Tran 1, and that's where you would be finding that right now Tran 1 is one of the most debated topic in the various high courts. Additionally, as we move ahead in the second year, I think all of you will agree that there was a huge challenge which was created because of the e-way bill system, because it was extremely unfortunate and most of the taxpayers were actually not ready for e-way bill system. Why? Because in the initial days we were told that GST would be a self-assessment driven system wherein the taxpayers would be actually trusted. But however, within a years of introduction of GST, we don't know where that trust vanished. And unfortunately, the old Inspector Raj, I would say, that got replaced with the e-way bill Raj, which is rather monitoring each and every goods which is moving not only from factory but also from all the depots as well as the various shops across the country. So practically everything which a supplier was doing, that is right now getting captured, and the honest taxpayer who are already doing compliance of GSTR 1-3B, they are saddled with unfortunately the e-way bill compliance as well. Additionally, friends, in the last year, that is the third year, we additionally saw one more bigger step in the month of October 2019, wherein the input tax credit on which all of us were enjoying as a right input tax credit, that suddenly got curtailed, and we were told that unless and until the vendors are filing the returns, we cannot claim credit more than 20%, and subsequently this 20% was reduced to 10% from January 2020. So one can understand that not only the technical glitches were creating challenge for the taxpayer, but also the e-way bill and right now the input tax credit. So as we move ahead in days to come, that is the fourth year, we believe that the biggest challenges which are going to come would be from the fact that right now the tax collections are low, and in days to come, because it's a consumption based tax, the tax collection are expected to continuously reduce, and that's where the authorities are going to do the audits or review whenever they are going to start in a stringent manner. So friends, while we will always have an expectation from the GST authority, but please keep in mind that GST, when it was introduced, it was not a CSR activity for the government. Rather, it was an activity, or it was a tax which was introduced with a intention that higher collection should be there. So most of us, if we had some bigger expectation that time, at least in the fourth year onwards, based on the last 3 years expectation, I think all of should now be used to the fact that we should not have that much expectation from GST in days to come, and we should try to be, but still at the same time we should be as much compliant as possible. So with these brief words, friend, I will now request Vaishali to take over the session, because today's session is more to do with the ROT DEP scheme. Only one comment I would like to have about the scheme, that it's extremely surprising that since the day of GST, since the GST got introduced, the life is getting more and more complex. in good old days before GST, we had a very simple scheme known as duty drawback scheme, EPCG scheme. Right now, the government, the scheme which they are talking about, even the name is extremely complex, correct? ROTDEP, even when one has to think twice before the name is appropriately taken. So complexity seems to be now crept into our DNA. So with this, I hope that at least the scheme, though the name is a bit complex, at least the scheme is a bit simple. And Vaishali will certainly explain you and take you through the scheme. So with this, I request Vaishali to take over the session and guide all of us on the scheme. Thank you.
Thank you, Preetham sir. And hope at the end of session, we will try to conclude about the whether scheme is complex or simple. So good afternoon to all. And first of all, happy GST day. So in this month, we are also going to take various topics on the GST on account of GST has completed the 3 years. But we will share separately the topic. So we'll start with today's topics of ROTTEP scheme, or you can pronounce it as an ROTTEP scheme. So friends, let's get started with the ROTTEP scheme. Friends, you may aware that whenever the export benefits or whenever the product is intended to be exported, there are some benefits attached to that. So government will announce the benefit in the two forms. Either it's an exemption, that is, the duty is exempted itself. So you are not paying the duty, it's exempted at the time of paying of the duty itself, or in the form of remission. So remission means you can say the refund, that you pay the duty first and then you take the remittance or the refund of that duty. So in these two forms, generally the refunds are in these two forms. You can say that the generally government announce the benefits whatever in the kind of the exports. Now, if we see the benefits available to the exports, we can divide that benefit, whatever the at present we are availing the benefits, that can be divided into three categories. So first is the GST refund. So under GST Act, there is a refund. Either you can claim the GST refund on the outward supply if you are exporting the goods with the payment of the GST without cover of LUT. Alternatively, you can claim the input tax credit also if you are exporting the goods without GST under the cover of LUT. So GST refund is allowed under the for the exporter. Second, duty drawback scheme is there under the Custom Act. And third, there are certain import benefits, that is at the time of importation, you can procure the material or the capital goods without import duty. All such benefits are available. So whatever the benefits announced by the government, so it's necessary to check what is the objective. So why government is announcing such a benefits for the exporter? So main objective of all these benefits are basically to make the product zero rated. So what is the zero rated product? So government does not intend, or any country, not only the India, but any country's intention is that the product or our local duties should not be exported to the other countries. So product should be free from whatever the local duties levied on the product if that product is going to be exported, so that that product can be made and competitive in the global market. So pricing should not include the whatever the domestically charged duties, and the basic intention of the whatever the benefits available is to just to ensure that the duties or local duties should not be exported and product is zero rated. So whether this is objective, whatever the benefits today we are having related to GST benefit, related to duty drawback, related to, you can say, about the import benefit, whether that benefit are sufficient to make the zero rated product or not, that basically we are going to discuss in this scheme. So scheme called as the ROTTEP. So this is, you can say, the background. So today we are going to divide our discussion into the 6 topics. So first, we are going to discuss the current FTP policies. So whatever the foreign trade policies available and benefits we are availing at present. Then we are going to discuss why road tap scheme is required, or why government is thinking to put into the place the road tap scheme instead of some FTP policies. So reason behind the road tap scheme we are going to discuss. In third part, we are going to discuss what is the scheme and what are the benefit available under the scheme. So brief about the scheme, whatever available in the public domain, we are going to discuss about that. Fourth, we are going to compare the scheme with the present scheme. So whatever the present scheme available are like MEIS, SAIS. So we are going to compare this scheme with the present scheme to get whether this scheme is beneficial or not. Fifth, what readiness. So if you have to transit easily from one scheme or present scheme to new scheme, what readiness you require at this stage, that we are going to discuss in the 5th part. And lastly, we are going to discuss the way forward, and then we can take the question and answer. So let's get started with the scheme discussion. So first, it's necessary to discuss the FTP policy. So friends, if we discuss about the current FTP policies or foreign trade policies or whatever foreign benefits available under the FTP policy, that can be divided into 3 parts. So first part is benefit at the time of import. So some schemes announced under the FTP policies gives the benefit at the time of import itself, or you can say that the pre-export benefit. So that schemes are the Advance Authorization Scheme, Duty-Free Import Authorization Scheme, and EPCG, that is the Export Promotional Capital Goods Schemes. So these schemes are aimed to give the benefit at the time of import itself, that is the, you can say, pre-export benefit. Some schemes available under the FTP policies are the post-export benefit, that is after the export or during the export you get that benefit. That schemes are duty drawback scheme, then MEIS scheme, so merchandise export from India scheme, which is available for the goods, and similarly SCIS scheme, that is the Service Export India scheme, which is available for the service sector. So this gives the benefit, or you can say these benefits are the post-export benefit. And 2 benefits are status-based incentives, that is available to the EOU, export-oriented units, and the special unit. So whatever the present policies we are having under the FTP can be divided into these 3 categories. Now the question arises, if we are having these many benefits, why RODTEP scheme required? That is why road tap scheme is required, and why government is intend to introduce this scheme. So friends, be with me, because this is very essential to understand the scheme, so that you can get easily the why scheme is introduced, and logic behind the scheme can be used for the purpose of implementation, or for that or for the purpose of competition of the benefit. So why road tap scheme is required or proposed to be implemented. So first reason, reason behind this, as the USA in 2018 challenged that the export promotional schemes of the India, whatever included in FTP, are not complying with the SCM agreement. So USA had challenged to the WTO that Indian policy or Indian export promotional policy is not in tune with the SCM agreement. Now question arises, what is WTO and what is SCM agreement? So let's see what is WTO. So WTO long form is World Trade Organization. WTO is the successor of the GATT. So on 1st January 1995, as a successor of the GATT, WTO was formed. GATT means General Agreement on Tariff and Trade. So to the 1995, there was a GATT, and after that, as a successor of the GATT, WTO has formed. Basically, WTO aims or ensure the free trade between the member countries. So there are certain countries which are the member of the WTO, and WTO body ensures that there should be the free trade between the member countries. So friends, till now there are almost 164 countries are the members of the WTO, and India is one of the member of the WTO. Again, now what is the SCM? The SCM stands for Subsidiaries and Countervailing Major Agreement. This is the agreement between the members of the WTO. This agreement, if you see, this agreement set out the remedies which the member countries have if any of the countries subsidized or if the product is injuries because of subsidization of by the any of the country. So this agreement, you can say the agreement between the countries to say set out the remedies to the other countries against any subsidization of the product. So this is called as SCM agreement. So if you we see the present dispute structure on the SCM agreement or on the WTO body. So almost 500 disputes are brought into the WTO. So 500 disputes are brought, and approx 350 disputes or rulings are decided in the 25 years of the existence. So on 1st January 2020, WTO body has completed 25 years, and on the 25 years of its existence, almost 350 rulings are disposed of. So friends, if we discuss about the key functions of the WTO, so key functions, someone is raising the hand. You can type in the chat box if any query. So friends, start with if WTO has, first WTO has three functions. First is dispute resolution, then negotiation for the market and taxes, and third is the monitoring. So these three functions are having. Among that, the function is the dispute resolution, by which the WTO decides about the any. So Sachin is saying that voice is breaking. So friends, whether voice is now okay? Does Sachinji also check your connection, because maybe there is a internet problem also. So if anyone has a voice problem, please message in the group. So voice is okay. So Sachinji, just check your internet connection. So friends, as discussed, WTO has three functions. First is the dispute resolution, negotiation for the market taxes, and monitoring. So among that, the dispute resolution functions helps to resolve the disputes between the member countries. To resolve the dispute between the member countries, the process is of two stages. In first stage, a WTO body forms the panel. It's called as dispute resolution panel, and the case is discussed in this panel, and panel give the ruling. If panel give the ruling, then the aggressive party can appeal to that ruling to the appellate body. So you can compare our Indian functions of the High Court and Supreme Court. In similar way, there can be the dispute resolution panel and the appellate body. So aggrieved party can appeal to the appellate body. So dispute resolution functions is of two-stage functions. Sir, so as far as India concerned, US had challenged that the Indian subsidiaries are not in tune with the SCM agreement Article 3.1A and Article 3.2. So what Article 3.1A or 3.2 says? So basically, if you see the Article 3.1A and 3.2 of the SCM agreement, that says that the whatever subsidiary given by the member country should not be depend upon or should not be should not be computed or depend upon the export performance. And you may aware that our FTP policies are based on the export or benefit a certain percentage of the export performance, and hence US challenge that is not in tune with the SCM agreements between the member countries. Now, after this challenge, the decision of the DRP, or we are having a dispute resolution panel, and dispute resolution panel ruled that the Indian subsidiaries are contingent upon the export performance and hence not in tune with the SCM agreement. And as per this ruling, it is directed to the India that subsidies should be withdrawn immediately. So as far as that ruling, we have to, or India has to withdraw the duty-free import for the export scheme, that is DFIS schemes, within 90 days of the adoption of the report. Whereas subsidiaries under the EOU, ESTP and BTP EPCG, or even including the MEIS, is required to be withdrawn within 120 days, and SEZ related be required to be withdrawn within 180 days. So these are the days within which India has to withdraw its present foreign trade policies. So if we see the present status, what is the present status of that ruling? So as an aggrieved party, India has already filed the appeal with the appellate body. So we had filed the appeal with the appellate body against the ruling given by the dispute resolution panel. But friends, if we see the WTO structure, as far as that structure is concerned, in the appellate body that require the maximum 7 judges, but minimum should be the 3 judges. But on 10th December 2019, 2 judges are retired. So on 10 December 2019, 2 judges were retired, and the WTO body, or you can say that the appellate body of the WTO has become dysfunctional, and because of that, Indian case is not yet heard at the appellate stage. So it's a pending at this stage. So if we see the key instances of this Indian case with the WTO, in 14th March, so in short, we can say on 14th March, consultation has requested. So consultation has requested by the US on 14th March. On the basis of that consultation, on 17th March 2018, panel, that is dispute resolution panel formation is requested, and on 28th March 2018, dispute resolution panel is established to hear the case of the India. On 31st October 2019, dispute resolution or DRP panel has circulated the report and ruled out that the Indian subsidiaries are not in tune with the SCM agreement and required to be withdrawn. On 19th November 2019, appeal has been filed by the India against that ruling. So on 19th November, India has filed the appeal for that ruling. On 10th December 2019, as we discussed, appellate body has become dysfunctional, and now the case is pending before the appellate body. Meanwhile, India has started to replace its present scheme. So India don't want the dispute further, and hence India has started to replace its present FTP policies, and accordingly the road tax scheme is announced. So main purpose of the road tax scheme, it should be WTO compliant, and it should not be depend on the export performance. So whatever the benefit available at present, friends, please be keep in mind. Now the benefits onwards in RODT AP scheme should not be depend on the export performance. So if we see the long form of the road tax scheme, long form is remission of the duties and taxes on the exported product. So word is remission. So definitely this scheme is allowing the refund, because the word is remission, and remission gives the refund. So you are going to pay the tax first, and then you exporter will get the benefit. So this is the long form. And if let's start with the now key scheme discussion. So what is the scheme and what are the benefits available under the scheme? So friends, if we see the path towards the scheme, what are the critical steps taken by the government towards the implementation of the scheme? That are in budget 2020, government has inserted section 51B in the Custom Act. So why such a section is inserted, we are going to discuss in detail afterwards, but let's just discuss about the steps taken by the government towards the implementation of these policies. So budget 2021, in budget 2021, it's inserted section 51B in the Custom Act. On 30th March 2020, the cabinet approval or union cabinet approval has been got or introduced given to the road tax scheme. So union cabinet already approved the scheme, and that given on the 13th March 2020. So scheme is approved by the union cabinet. Again, the third is that this scheme is WTO component with the WTO guidelines or following with the WTO guidelines, or it is as per the SCM agreement with the members country. Then the ROTDF scheme or road tax scheme is aimed to replace or it is proposed to replace the current scheme of MEIS and ROSCTL. So everyone knows the MEIS scheme, but let's discuss about the ROSCTL scheme. What is the ROSCTL scheme? So MEIS scheme everyone knows, but ROSCTL scheme has recently introduced on 1st April 2019. This scheme is specifically for the garment sector. So this scheme replaced the existing scheme of the garment named rebate of state levies. So rebate of state levies was available earlier for the garment, that is replaced by the ROSCTL scheme. And ROSCTL scheme is WTO as per the with the WTO compliant scheme, you can say, or it is as per the WTO guidelines. And on the basis of this scheme only, the road tax scheme has road tax scheme has framed, or draft of the road tax scheme has been framed by the government. If you see the ROSCTL scheme, that is which is available to the garment, its benefits ranges from the 2% to 8%. And this scheme again, this, last year this is announced that this was announced that the ROSCTL scheme will be going to be replaced by the road tax scheme in the March month itself. But because of COVID-19 and because of this pandemic scenario, the cabinet has extended the continuation of this scheme, that is the available for the garment scheme, for the 1 year. So now ROSCTL scheme is extended for the 1 year from the, and this extension has got from the 25th March 2020. So it's going to be extended till such a time that ROSCTL scheme is merged with the road tax scheme. So once it is merged, then the ROSCTL scheme is going to be replaced by the road tax scheme. So as per the news report, the scheme is going to be, or road tax scheme is going to be introduced from January 2020, and it is going to be replaced by the, it is decided that it will replace the MEIS. So present MEIS scheme is going to be replaced by the road tax scheme, and ROSCTL scheme is going to be merged with the road tax scheme. So now what is the benefit available under the road tax scheme? So friends, as discussed earlier, the main intention of the government to grant the benefit to the exported product is to make that product zero rating. But at present, you get or exporter get the benefit of the GST. So GST refund is available. Under custom and duty drawback is available, and some import benefit available. But what benefits not available? So exporters still incurring the some kind of embedded taxes like petrol, electricity, or you can say on petrol you are paying excise and VAT, which is not reimbursed to the exporter. So the road tax scheme covers such a reimbursement of the taxes which are inbuilt or which are embedded taxes in your procurement. So its aim is to reimburse such a embedded taxes. It will cover the reimbursement of the levies that are not reimbursed currently. So whatever the levies which are not reimbursed currently, like we had took the example of the, let's say, petrol levies, the excise and the VAT, which is not reimbursed to the exporters. So whatever the levies which are not at present reimbursed to the exporter are going to be reimbursed in the road tax scheme. Now if such a percentage or whatever the reimbursement which is not presently allowed to the exporter, if such a tax is reimbursed to the exporter, then you can say that the now product is zero rating. So now really the product is zero rating and not having any tax burden. So what are such a taxes or duties which are embedded in the procurement chain or procurement and supply chain? So some of the examples are mandi tax. So mandi tax benefit is not available at present to the exporter. Electricity duty, excise and VAT on the petroleum products, GST on the URD purchases. Now friends, you may say that why GST on the URD purchases? Because whenever you purchase from the URD dealer, GST is not levied by the unregistered dealer. Then why GST on URD purchases? But your vendor, whatever the unregistered vendor, may have made certain expenses on which taxes are levied. And such an incidence of taxes they will include in their basic price, and then with the profit they charge to the exporter. So that incidence of taxes indirectly get passed on to the exporter, and hence GST on the URD purchases. So this scheme is intended to refund that taxes also. Afterwards, someone is saying that voice is not clear. Now it's clear to all.
Yes, it is clear.
Yes, it is clear. No? Just check your internet connection also. GST on we are on the GST on URD purchases. Then road taxes which are not available at the time now for the exporter. Property tax would be the one of the example which is not available to the exporter at present. Stamp duty on export document and the embedded HGST paid on the inputs. So many of such examples can be taken which are at present are not available to the exporter as a refund, and which are incurred during the purchase of the inputs or during the purchase of the raw materials. So you have to list down such a taxes so that able to compute the benefit which can be available under this scheme. So friends, this is the background of the scheme. So scheme aims mainly to reimburse the embedded duties instead of now whatever available on the basis of FOB value or exported product. So let's discuss with the why Custom Act amendment is necessary. So you had got the background of the scheme. Now on the basis of background, the step taken by the government is to insert the section 52B under the Custom Act. So why that section is necessary? So as per this section, friends, if you see that in section 51V inserted in the Custom Act, that section has three subclause. So let's discuss first subclause. In the first subclause, it says that the central government may by notification in the official gazette specify the manner in which it shall issue the duty credit in the lieu of the remission of any duty or taxes or levy. So it specifies the manner in which duty credit is available to the exporter. So it authorizes, so this section in first clause authorizes the duty credit available to the exporter in the lieu of remission of the duty or the taxes or the levy chargeable on any material used in the manufacture. So friends, word is used. So whatever the material used in the manufacture or the processing of the goods or carrying out the operation on such goods, that duties, any duties or taxes levied on that material will be remitted to the exporter. So that power is given under subsection 1. So subsection gives the manner to prescribe the that remission of the duty. Then subclause 2 is about the duty issued under section 1, subsection 1 shall be maintained in the custom automated system in the form of electronic credit ledger. So friends, it's a big change that the whatever the refund you are going to get or exporter is going to get is in the form of electronic credit ledger. So you may aware that in GST we are having the electronic credit ledger where we even submit or you even deposit the cash balance as well as credit balance. In similar way, in Custom Act they are decided that the road tax scheme is fully automated and the benefits are available in the form of electronic credit ledger, and it is a fully custom automated system. In the third subclause, they says that the duty available or duty credit available in the duty credit ledger may be used by the person to whom it is issued or the person to whom it is transferred. So third clause says about the utilization of the duty credit ledger. So whatever the balance or whatever the refund you are getting into the or exporter are getting into the duty credit ledger can be used by himself for the payment of the duties, or he may transfer to the another person and that person can pay that for the payment of the duties if you are having. So section 51B prescribe 4 key aspects for the ROTDF or road tax scheme. First, it prescribes the manner of the issuance of the duty credit, or it authorizes to prescribe the manner. So manner is not yet prescribed. The section 51B authorizes to prescribe the manner. It could be prescribed afterwards by way of notification, in which manner that duties are available, or in what could be the percentage. At that percentage you will get the benefit of the remission. So manner will be prescribed afterwards, but section 51B authorizes to prescribe the manner. Second key aspect is it provides the creation of electronic duty credit ledger. So it provides or authorizes to create the electronic duty credit ledger, in which ledger the benefit is going to be transferred. Third, that it prescribes the utilization that can be utilized. So electronic credit ledger can be utilized to the person or by the person for the utilization by the person to whom it is or export benefit has been granted for the payment of the duty, or he can transfer to the another person and that person can use it. So section 51 is about that. So now friends, this is the overview about the scheme and the benefit available under the scheme. Now if we compare this scheme with the present scheme available, so as discussed, this scheme is going to be replaced by, or MEIS scheme is going to be replaced by the road tax scheme. So if we compare the scheme with the present scheme, let's which scheme is beneficial? Let's discuss about the comparison of the two schemes. So in at the present, in case of MEIS, exporter gets the benefit or incentives which ranges from the 2% to 5% of FOB value of the export. So whatever the benefit is available is on the basis of certain percentage of the FOB, free on board value of the export. However, in the road tax scheme, you will get the product based benefit. So on the basis of number of units exported, certain percentage of the duties, so they will fix the percentage of the embedded duties, and that percentage on product based incentives is given under the will be given to you under the road tax scheme. Second, MEIS benefit is not a WTO compliant, but road tax scheme, as discussed, is not based on the export performance, but rather it aims to give you the refund of the embedded taxes, and hence it is a WTO compliant. Then the incentives available under the MEIS scheme. So at present, incentives are available in the form of scrip. So your exporter get the scrip, and that scrip can be used for the payment of the taxes, or it's freely transportable or sold to the third person. Under the road tax scheme also, script will be given, but that will be given in the electronic form, and that can be used by that same person or can be freely transferable. So these are the certain differences with respect to present scheme and proposed scheme. So now question arises whether the refund under the road tax scheme be adequate to compensate the rewards under the MEIS scheme. So which scheme is beneficial? So friends, the answer to this question depends on could be differ product to product, and the exporter has to compute the benefit at this stage only and compare it to the existing benefit, so that at least exporter can get the idea that whether I am in loss, so that I can represent, or exporter can represent to the DGFT at this stage only, because DGFT is in a process to compute the fixed percentage or average percentage given to the specific product. So product-wise percentage are going to be announced, and DGFT is a process to compute that percentage. So why readiness is necessary at this stage? So friends, at this stage, the DGFT has invited the data or information to decide the rate of the embedded taxes. So a government is also not knowing or not known that what is the embedded taxes per product is having. So for every manufacturing company or for every product, government has invited the data or information about the embedded taxes. And this information, an exporter or manufacturer is required to give the information about the unrebated taxes or whatever the levies or duties which at present are borne by the manufacturer or the exporter, which can be refunded. This information is required to be submitted with the DGFT. This information, if you are going to collect and submit, this information is required to be submitted product wise. So whenever you intend to submit that information or collecting, start the collecting that information, be ensured that that information required is the product wise. So if you are manufacturing 2 or 3 products and each of the product is exported, please ensure that for each product separate computation is to be made, because the benefit announced is going to be announced product wise only. For maybe for product, because for each product inputs required could differ, and hence benefits announced will be the product wise. The government has given 3 forms, R1, R2 and R3 for the purpose of submission of the information. So what are the form R1, R2 and R3? If you see the form R1 form, in R1 form you require to fill the basic details. What are the basic details? Name, address of the companies, and PAN number and IEC number. So import, export codes, etc. Basic details, along with the product exported. So what product you are going to export, or what at present what product you are exporting. So HSN, UKC, unit quantity, etc. details about that is required to be given in R1 form. Second, in R1 form, you have to report the product manufactured. So what unit quantity you manufactured of that product. Amongst that manufactured unit, how much is exported and how much domestically sold. So these details are to be asked in the form R1. Then R2 form is for the purpose of embedded duties. So whatever embedded duties manufacturer or exporter incurring, that are to be given in the form R2. And what are the examples? The examples are the excise and VAT on the fuel. So fuel used during the transportation. So it includes the inbound transportation as well as outbound transportation. So both types of the fuel is considered and embedded duties on that fuel is to be considered in the R2 form. Other examples could be the electricity duty, stamp duty, state VAT levied on the fuel. So these are the examples, and these embedded duties are required to be given in the R2 form. Now R3 form. R3 form, friends, in R3 form, you have to give the incidence of the duties, not the embedded duty, but incidence of the duties that has passed on to the manufacturer. For example, we had discussed about the URD purchases. So in case of URD purchases, even you had or manufacturer had not directly incurred the GST, it has incurred indirectly the other taxes, including the GST on that product, because your vendor has passed on his incidence of taxes to the manufacturer. So whatever such an incidence of taxes, if you manufacturer are incurring, that are to be given in the R3. What are other some examples are the VAT on fuel in case of farm sector. Mandi taxes. So in case of farm product, maybe the purchase of farm product could be exempted, but mandi tax is levied on such a farm product. Then embedded HGST paid on the inputs of such a pesticide, fertilizers, etc. Embedded HGST in purchases from unregistered dealer, and embedded HGST on coal used in the production of electricity, and any other if you are having any other examples of such a incidence in which the incidence of tax has been passed on to the manufacturer, should be given in the R3 form. So as a preparation, friends, if you are availing the MEIS benefit at present, please quickly start the process of data submission so that your product will get covered or considered, or your data will be considered at the time of the computation of the benefit. So please collect the details as required in the 3 forms, R1, R2 and R3. Please fill these 3 forms. This information is required to be submitted for the period of January 2019 to June 2019. So if you are collecting the details, collect for the period of January 2019, that is last year, up to the June 2019, that is for the 6 months. Then if you are having the different unit, one unit is in DTA, one unit is in SEZ, one unit is in EOU, then for each such a unit, you have to prepare separate data. That means data prepared should be the product wise as well as unit wise if your presence is in DTA, SEZ, EOU, etc. Then the list of indicative taxes or generally used UKC should be given along with the R1, R2. So whatever the list of indicative taxes and along with the unit code or quantity referred should be given along with the R1, R2, R3 forms. Along with that, certain documentary proof, like for monthly taxes, you can give some document proof that this much tax is levied and incidence is passed on to the manufacturer. So certain documentary proof is also required to be given along with these forms. And be ensured that the data should be certified by 2 persons. So whatever data you are going to submit to the DGFT, that should be certified by the 2 persons. First person is the manufacturer. So manufacturer or manufacturer exporter should certify that data, and second person will be the chartered accountant. So the ensure that the chartered accountant had certified the data. So both the person should require to certify the data before submission of that data. So friend, this is about the data submission. Please expedite the process of the data submission so that whatever the taxes you are able to communicate to the DGFT that these many are the taxes which are embedded in our procurement supply chain. But in addition to this, when we are submitting the data for our client, certain challenges we had faced. So just we will discuss that challenges. You may also face that challenges if you are going to submit that data. So there is a question that the whether the royalty, local levies, etc. paid on the coal should be remitted under the scheme. So there could be some questions like that the royalty, etc. whether royalty is a tax or not tax. So these questions could arise while submission of the data. But in such a question, the answer could depend upon the fact-to-fact basis. So take decision on the basis of the facts. Then second question arises is, in case of average rate arrived. So as discussed, on the basis of data you are going to submit, the government is going to announce the average rate or average benefit for the embedded taxes. And now question arises, if the average benefit available is lower than the actual rate of embedded taxes of the manufacturer. So there could be some manufacturer or the product quality could differ manufacturer to manufacturer, and also input quality used could differ. So if the rate arrived, let's say rate arrived by the government is 3%, however actual rate you computed will be 5%, whatever the embedded taxes, then whatever the 2% difference, how government is going to compensate that? Because at present, if you see, the MEIS benefit is on the basis of FOB value, but going forward, it is based on your embedded taxes. And if the rate given to you is lower than whatever the actual rate, then your product may not be competitive to other manufacturers whose rate is either equal to or lower than the benefit available. So in such a cases, you have to represent it to the government at this stage only. And till now we are not having the details. In such a cases, how the exporter is going to be compensated by for the difference amount. So this is not known. So this is about the whole background of the scheme and some challenges we had discussed about the scheme, friends. So now as a way forward, just to keep in mind that please start the submission of the data. It's very necessary for your product and industry, because in anyhow road tax scheme is going to be implemented in some days, and the benefit will be depend on the data submitted by the you. Second, whatever data you are going to collect for the purpose of submission, it will help to compute you the, at least it will help to budget what could be the benefit under the road tax scheme and what is the benefit at present under the MEIS scheme. So on the basis of this difference, if this difference is huge or you are losing because of road tax scheme, so at present only you can represent to the authorities or DGFT or MOC or MOF that the this scheme will give the losses or because of this scheme, these are the challenges going to be arisen in days to come, so that the government can look into the challenges. Even the DGFT themselves asking for you or for the exporter to submit the data and to make the representation if any challenges is on account of the new scheme, road tax scheme. So at initial stage only, friends, revisit and recompute your benefits under the existing scheme vis-a-vis new scheme. Also, it's necessary that they carry out the impact analysis so that there is any challenges is going to face in the future that would be addressed at this stage only. Again, keep in mind that active participation at this stage only will help you to transition of the scheme easily. you may aware about the GST transition. So on account of GST transition, after 3 years also, we are facing the challenge of the transition of the GST. So even today also, many cases are pending on the High Court for the transition of input tax credit. So other provision, forgot about the other provision, but only for the purpose of ITC transfer from pre-GST to post-GST, there are almost 40 or more than 40 cases are pending in the High Court. So if you want the smooth transition of old MEIS scheme to new road tax scheme, please ensure that the active participation in this scheme at this stage only, and in during transitional phase only, you sorted out whatever challenges you may face in the future. So the challenges as asked, DGFT is already asking, please represent these challenges time to time to the MOC or MOF. You may directly represent to that body, or you may or we will also help for representing this to the MOF or the MOC. So this is about the scheme. So any query about the scheme we can discuss, friends. So you may drop the or you may drop the query in the chat box, so that we will discuss about the query. So there are certain queries received. Someone, Rohanji, is saying that the MER scheme continued till December 2020. This is correct news. Rohanji, earlier it was decided that the MER scheme will continue only up to the MER scheme was going to continue up to the December 2020. But because of this pandemic scenario, they had extended the implementation of the road tax scheme up to January 21. So the MEIS scheme is also extended. So whatever the present foreign trade policies or FTP policies which are end on the March, so March 2020 only they are going to end at the March, but that is extended for the 1 year. So road tax scheme is now proposed to be replaced, or MEIS scheme is proposed to be replaced by the road tax scheme in January 2020. So we are having some period to prepare for it. So please ensure the prepare. Then, someone is asking, Babarji is asking that after implementation of this scheme, what will be the process for claiming the pending MEIS? So, sir, there could be some transitional provision, but this scheme draft is not yet available. Draft would be available afterwards. First of all, DGFT is asking to submit the data so that they can draft the scheme, or they can arrive at a percentage or product-wise percentage that can be given to the exporter. So first, as a proactive stage, government is asking for the data. Then afterwards, they could give the transition phase. So in case of pending MEIS, transition phase would be available. Now this is not available. Amitji is saying that with the variety of the products, how can one find the electricity duty on a product basis? So you are correct, Amitji. There could be the challenges at the time of collection of the data. So even as a firm, we have faced many challenges at the time of collection of the data. So if you are having 2-3 products and electricity duty is common, so you have to set certain common parameter to give the electricity duty product wise. So there could be the certain parameter, maybe unit of product manufacturing, time could be one of the parameter. So it could depend on the product to product, which parameter you should consider for the purpose of dividing that electricity duty units. So this could depend on, but there should be the rationale behind whatever the parameter you are going to use. So just keep in that rationale, and whenever you are submitting the R1, R2, R3, just attach that rationale with that form also, along with any proof if you are having, you can attach that one also. Then Amit Ji is again asking that what is the status about SEIS. So about the SEIS, Amit Ji, not yet said that the SEI is going to replace in with any of the new scheme, but we may in future that could be the payout. But as SEI scheme is available for certain services only. So at present, at least there is no any replacement for the SEI scheme. So Nilesh is saying that please explain about the about the R1 R2 form. So Nilesh, I just explain briefly because I am going to share we are going to share this PPT with all of you. That R1 is just basic details. So in R1 you basically say that you have to give your basic details and what product you had manufactured, what product among that manufactured product. So first keep in mind whatever information you are providing, it is for the period of January 2019 to June 2019. So in that period how many products you manufacture, how many unit you had manufactured, among that how much exported and how much domestically, that is in domestically sold, that is in R1 form. And in R2 form you have to give the details of the embedded taxes. So whatever directly levied taxes, direct you can say electricity on petrol product excise, so whatever embedded taxes you have to give. And in R3 form you have to give the incidence of the tax passed on by your vendor to you. So whatever the incidence of the tax passed on is to be given in the R3 form. Now